Hey everybody, this is Chris Gallagher, and this is our lesson number 4 on the You Can Do It series that is right here on the website, and you can follow along with where we're going to be. Today we're going to be talking about setting effective goals by incorporating some discipline building elements into your goals. We've spent some time talking about what goals to set, those realistic goals, those goals that you can achieve, those goals that are not so far out that you're going to miss them. And we started to talk last week about setting some discipline building elements. And here's why. Remember that effective goals do not just happen. It's important that you write your goals down. We've shared this with you before in many other posts, many different ideas, but to write your goals down because it starts to make them a reality. Because when you write your goals down, they don't just magically become effective or useful. It's going to take a few extra steps, but these few extra steps are going to make sure that your goals are effective. Because you can talk about your goals, but really seeing them on paper will make a great difference. So here's a question. What if I told you that you can set up your goals in such a way that they can be self-sustaining? We mentioned this last week, but there's an importance to this with the self-sustaining goals. In other words, these goals train you to become more disciplined. Instead of you just kind of writing down your goals, these goals actually work with you to make this happen. And also what you're going to find out is this. The more you achieve these goals, the more disciplined you become, and you can take on more and even take on more goals. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Well, this is not a theory. It can happen, and people make it happen. So let me share with you a little bit on how they do it. The first thing they do is they have their big objective that we've talked about for the past at least 2 lessons. But they also have sub-goals. And what they do is they prioritize their sub-goals. They look at their big objective and they start to break it down into sub-goals, or what we're also going to call sub-elements of your big goals. Now, when you do that, you've got to prioritize those. You've got to sort those based on their likelihood to lead you to the big objectives. In other words, if you knock out the sub-goals, they're going to take you directly to your big objectives. Now, not all sub-goals are the same. Sometimes sub-goals are necessary, but they lead to like an indirect path. And if you're reasonably certain that if you take the indirect path, it eventually leads you to your big goal, then your sub-goal is good enough. But you want your goals and sub-goals to lead you in the same direction. They may have a little bit different path to them, but in the same direction. And what it's important to do is it's important to write down these sub-goals and make it your highest priority to focus on the sub-goals most directly connected to your big objectives. In other words, when you act on the sub-goals, it's like going from point A to point B. The shorter and the straighter line, the better. You don't want to go all over the place. You want to make sure that you're taking the shortest line to get there. But you want to prioritize those in such a way that you can work through those and you can knock out those sub-goals, and it's going to be the direct line to that big objective. To be able to do this, you have to be clear. You have to be clear about your sub-goals as you can be. And while you think about prioritizing sub-goals is important, also understand that you need to make sure that you conceptualize them correctly. Look at your sub-goals, look at the parts of the sub-goals, and make sure that you're being clear on what you need to do, when you need to do it, how to do it, and where to do it. The most important ingredient in this is to be clear as to why you're doing this sub-goal. Not just that you're doing it, but you need to be clear as to why. When you find this clarity, this is going to be an important facet of your sub-goal creation. Just as when you start to ask the question why to your big objectives, it's going to be clear for you. So let's ask ourselves this question. When you have a sub-goal written down, What is the sub goal's impact on your big objectives? What's the sub goal's impact on your big objectives? Also, how's it going to get you there? How does this sub goal help you fulfill your big objective? You can also ask yourself this question: what kind of role does the sub goal play in helping you achieve the big things you're shooting for? If you can't answer that question, you may not need that sub goal. You may not need that sub element. Your sub goals need to help you achieve the bigger goals in life. We're just breaking those goals down into achievable segments. But those achievable segments need to help you reach your overall big goal. And one thing that begins to happen and you start to see is when you start making your highest priority sub goal your main focus or your primary focus, you start to build discipline. And you build discipline by making that highest priority sub goal your primary focus at the time. Here's what I mean by that. You have your big objective, whatever your big objective is. You break those sub goals down and you say, okay, what's the sub goal that's my highest priority right now? And you go ahead and you make that your primary focus because it's leading you down the road to achieving that big objective that you want. In every given day, make sure that you're focusing on your sub goals that lead you closer to your big objectives. Make the sub goals and make their activities that you have to do to accomplish that sub goal your primary focus. Everything must lead to that, and you've got to keep that in mind. Also, make it a point to do the hardest part first. We will put off, as human nature, we will put off hard things until we just can't deal with them anymore. But make it a point to do the hardest part first. It's not going to be easy, but make it a point. So make no mistake about this. Regardless of the sub goal, regardless of the activities, there's always something that you're going to struggle with. There's always going to be a part of a project that you're going to have a tough time starting. And maybe the project is technically easy, but you're just emotionally intimidated by it. On the other hand, it may be emotionally easy and it may be very straightforward as far as your understanding of the necessity of doing this, but it's technically challenging. It doesn't matter. Regardless of the situation, focus on the hardest parts and choose to do them first. It's not going to be easy. At first, it's probably going to feel like you're pulling teeth without any Novocaine. And it's not going to happen overnight. That's why it's important that we understand that these things don't just happen overnight. It takes a process. It takes a process to achieve that big objectives. But also understand that the more you keep at it, the greater your self-discipline becomes because you're starting to tackle the hardest things first. You're not putting those off until later. You're tackling those hardest things first. You're not running away from it. You're not procrastinating. You're not trying to find a workaround, but you're tackling it head on. This first battle is probably going to be very brutal, but the more you keep attacking it, the more confident you're going to become. At the very least, you're not going to be intimidated. So when this happens again, you're going to go right through it. You're going to tackle that hardest part of that problem. When you keep this up, here's what's going to happen. It will lead you to consistent action that ensures that your sub-goals are achieved. The more sub-goals that you knock out, the clearer you get to go to your big objectives. This is not rocket science or brain surgery or anything like that, but instead it's the simple things that will make the greatest difference, even in difficult and tough situations. So as you think about your sub-goals, as you think about where you're at right now, sit down and make that list and begin prioritizing those sub-goals. If you haven't done this, go back and begin to watch from the first lesson to this point. And you're going to find out that you can achieve these things. Now, in our next lesson, we're going to talk about using our daily rituals to fine-tune and to achieve your goals. But I want to make sure that you're prioritizing your sub-goals right now so that we can begin to make a difference. Hey, thanks for being here. This is Chris Gallagher. I appreciate your time today in watching this. Go back and watch the other lessons just as a review. And hey, we're going to do what we can to be able to help you out. Hope you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Be blessed.